Shoes to go down to play this team.
Absolutely.
Denzel obviously back, which helps a lot. He feels very confident about the matchup though, because you guys do have guys that can run with them to some degree, right?
Yeah. I feel confident because we do have guys that can run. And at least with Tyreek, we played against him, the past couple of years. So we're familiar with what he's capable of doing. But this is going to be one of those games. We're going to have to win, some one-on-ones.
Hill, I mean, and like you said, you had the luxury of having played against him before. Is there a way to replicate that speed when you're game prepping?
No. No. And he's unique. I was at Denver, like when he came into the league, I think 16. So I saw him develop as a player. When he first got there, he was more of a specialist and just ran certain routes or certain runs when he was at Kansas City. But I saw him develop into a receiver. And he's so fast and he's so quick. Everybody talks about the vertical speed, but if you throw him something short, you miss a tackle, he might go 70. So he's definitely a handful to deal with, but we are familiar with him. And there's a couple different things we'll try to do to slow him down.
Hey, Joe, what has been the key for the way your defense played these last two games?
I think the guys did a great job preparing. I think they were holding each other accountable for what they were doing on the practice field and on game day. For me, defensively, just trying to come up with a game plan where I felt like they could go out and play fast and execute. The different game plans against Baltimore and Cincinnati, they were drastically different, but I think everybody was comfortable with it. And I think we played well the last two games, and hopefully that continues to be the case.
McDaniel comes from the Shanahan tree and all that, but they doesn't seem to use the running game like his mentor does. Why is that?
He does, but I think, everybody knows or looks at Miami and thinks about the receivers. Raheem Mostert was I was there in San Francisco when he was the back along with Jeff Wilson. I was in the same building, with Coach McDaniels. So I know he handled the run game. So I know he does want to run the ball. But when you have weapons like that, you want to get the ball to them as well. They do have the ability to have home runs when they hand the ball off. So you just can't go in and just focus on stopping the pass game. You have to be sound in the run game as well.
Stands out about Mike from your year with him out there?
First of all, he's a really great guy. I didn't go in there and talk to him a lot, but there's times I went in there, but he's a great guy. Everybody in the building loved him. Very smart. I know Coach Shanahan put a lot of confidence in him to put together the run game, just the way they met on offense. And now you're seeing the results of him being with Kyle. I think he was at Kyle at five different teams. So you see a lot of the influence of Kyle's system, but Mike's taken in his own direction in terms of what he's doing.
Did you think he'd be a guy who just kind of keep climbing?
You knew it. Just being in that system, those guys, when they perform well, they get jobs. So I know it was just a matter of time before he'd get one.
In addition to the speed and the stuff that you talked about with Tyreek, his hands and everything are so good too. So what are the other things that just make him so devastating?
It's speed. It's his speed and quickness. He can go from point A to B right now when he puts his foot in the ground. And he's a vertical threat, but he's also an underneath threat. They do things in terms of handling the ball. He's in the backfield. They know how to use him for sure as a weapon. And, there's different guys based on what we call it are going to have to try to defend him.
When they motion him and they jet sweep him and all that stuff, do you have somebody mirror and try to run with him on those, or is that kind of a handoff situation where you're?
Depends on the call. Yeah. Yeah.
They attack the middle all the time. Is that by design of their offense, or do those guys just make people miss and end up in the middle?
That's the offensive scheme. They do a little bit of everything, but you're right. They really do try to attack the middle of the field. You can see it with their, play action and some of the route concepts they run. And everybody knows it. That's been the system forever, but it's just trying to stop it. What's hard to do.
How has Denzel looked this week since he's been back on the practice field, and just how important is it to have him back for a matchup like this?
It's definitely good to have him back. I feel confident in all the guys we have back there, but to add that element of speed, somebody that's played, against Tyreek in the past. It definitely gives you confidence. And, I think there are certain things that I'll be able to do coverage-wise, knowing that he can go match up at times.
How unique is Tua?
I tell you what, just watching tape, he's a good player. I think he really goes through his progressions quickly. He gets rid of the football on time, and he's not afraid to throw the ball into tight windows. And the thing I see him do for young guys is throw receivers open as well. But he's been impressive. Just watching tape, the more I watch, the more impressed I am with what he's doing.
Do you think that, oh,
With the way the Dolphins offense operates, do you feel maybe a little bit more promising that your defense was able to really step it up in terms of the open field tackling against the Bengals and really get back to those fundamentals? Is it promising entering this game?
For sure. You have to tackle against these guys. As I mentioned earlier, they have multiple guys, whether it's the receivers, backs, tight ends. They get the ball to them. They can make guys miss and turn it into a big gain. I think we've improved over the last couple of weeks tackling, but that's going to be very critical to us having success.
Joe, is this,
JOK, he's out with the knee injury. Do you have a hope that he'll be able to play this game, or is he going to be out?
Yeah. He's rehabbing, but it's just one of those day-to-day things that we'll have to check on.
not the game plan itself, but the offense you're facing, is it, you guys did such a good job with Jamar Chase in the lineup last year. Is it similar with all those weapons to the Bengals of last year?
It is, and in the NFL, week to week, I'll be talking to you next week about the challenges. But every week in the NFL is a challenge, and it's slightly different. But in terms of being similar to Cincinnati, with a very good quarterback, with elite skill players, they're the same type of team. I just think offensively, what they do is different to what Cincinnati does.
Joe, we haven't talked about Waddle yet. I mean, I think he's fifth in the league. What is it about his skill set, and how much of that is just defenses focusing so much on Tyreek?
You're picking your poison. If you want to send a lot of attention to Tyreek, then now he's one-on-one. If you try to take away both of the guys, now you have to deal with the tight end, you have to deal with the backs. So I think there's a couple different things you have to do, but in order to take away something, you're going to weaken yourself somewhere else. That's just the nature of the game. But he's playing at a high level. He's the second most targeted receiver on their team, but they're set to break records in terms of the reception and the yardage that those guys are putting up. But he's been impressive on tape.
Joe, I know it depends on the call, right? But because your guys can run, do you give them, your corners specifically, do you give them a little bit of freedom in terms of how tight they are on guys or not? I know there's times where you're going to call press and you want them right up on guys. But otherwise, do you give them a little bit of freedom and liberty to kind of, do you know what I'm saying?
No, not really. No, I know what you're saying.
Because you trust them to.
Yeah. No, there's definite trust with the players in terms of, what we do. But like technique-wise, we want to have a lot of structure. Whether it's based on where the receiver is aligned, or outside, where he's aligned inside, based on the call that we're making. Because we want them to do the same things over and over again. So there's consistency in our techniques.
When you went back and did your self-scout from the first 8 games, did you come away thinking, okay, these calls work best for us versus these calls? I mean, was there a lot of that went on from the evaluation?
There's a little bit of that. When you look at the game situationally, you see, like, man, this call's not working. And then you go back and watch the tape. And some of it could be the call in the situation that I chose to call it. Some of it could be the execution of it. But there's slight little adjustments that we made. But, again, week to week, depending on your playing, it could be a different type of game plan.